Good evening. It is Wednesday, June 7th. It is 6:30 p.m., and I would like to call the meeting of the Lunenburg School Committee to order. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised this meeting is being broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. If you wish to join us via Zoom, the meeting ID is 766-316-7600. And this, this meeting will be broadcast live through the local access cable channel and on the public access Facebook page, and will be found on the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel within 24 hours after the meeting. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. I would ask if you are able to stand to pledge the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first order of business this evening is public comment. The school committee welcomes comments from the public. Comments addressing topics under the scope and authority of the school committee are welcome. Please remember this is public comment, not discussion, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Each public comment section has a maximum of 10 minutes. Comments about individual students are prohibited by state and federal law. Do we have any public comments this evening? Certainly. Come up to the microphone, please, and give us your name and address.
My name is Darrell Plant. I live at 490 Lancaster Ave. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. For nearly 2 years, I've asked this committee and the administration to define the term equity and what it means to each of you. 6 weeks ago or so, the superintendent presented a picture, this picture, as an attempt to define equity. The committee's chair supported this as a good definition. This is the exact picture, except I colored in support bubbles and drew 2 lines, a baseline and a top line. Top line depicts the fence. Do all the committee members support this definition? I look at this and see the obvious. The red support bubble was taken away from the tallest student and given to the shortest student. Now all 3 children are the same height. However, now none of the children can see over the fence. I can only conclude that this school is not interested in producing high-performing students, but instead of social justice. So if you believe your child may grow up to be a doctor, lawyer, scientist, or an independent thinking, hard-working community member, Lunenburg schools may not be the best place. I do not understand how anyone could sacrifice a child and their future to support another. I have some questions for you all. I've asked before, has an equity team or committee been established? And if so, have they met? The school has adopted a tiered learning approach. How can this approach coexist with this definition of equity provided by the superintendent? How is this definition of equity implemented in the curriculum and culture in real terms? Who gets to make these important decisions about our children's futures, and what are the metrics? Finally, the administration has been developing data profiles on all students. Can we see the file of our own child? Who owns our children's data? And how is the data protected, and what happens to it eventually? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Plant.
Any questions?
Are there any other public comments? I think No, I don't see a hand raised, do I? No. Okay. Any comments from the committee?
Just the talk of the last half an hour. Obviously, congratulations to our retirees. I'm sure you'll have something to say about that, Madam Chair and Madam Superintendent. And also, congratulations to our graduates. It was a phenomenal event in many ways on Saturday, not the least of which was the extraordinary achievements that were discussed on Saturday and demonstrated by the fantastic spirit of our graduating class. So congratulations to them, teachers, staff, administration. Very well done.
Thank you. All right, then, the chair's report. I'd like to congratulate the class of 2023 on their graduation. Despite the cold, rainy weather, they embraced the day, showed their resilience, and celebrated in a truly memorable way. So best wishes to all of them as they move forward into the future. I'd also like to congratulate Mrs. Heidi Champagne, Ms. Sherry Flynn, and Ms. Sheila Bellotta on their retirement. We thank them so much for everything you have done for our students over these many years. This afternoon, Dr. Burnham, Mr. Cassidy, Ms. Lemieux, Mr. Jeffries, Mr. Beardmore, and I met to discuss the plan for the rehabilitation of the Turkey Hill Elementary School. That plan that we discussed at our last meeting. This plan includes the necessary repairs to maintain the building for possible future municipal use. The school committee has been asked to research possible uses for this property should a new building be built. So you will hear more about that at a later time. And that would be my report. We don't have any minutes, I don't believe.
We do not.
And we don't have a line item transfer either, correct?
We do not.
I didn't pull up, we were busy congratulating. I didn't pull up my, my folder. So now we're on to the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. So I'll start the report with a few words about our retirees. We asked all of them to share what their plans would be in their retirement. So we'll begin with Ms. Sherry Flynn, who has been a teacher in Lunenburg for the last 20 years. She's been a pre-K teacher. She said, in September, when I anticipate a tug at my heart for the Lunenburg preschool that has been a special place of my life for nearly 20 years, my husband and I will visit Ireland, one of our favorite places on earth. After that, she intends to catch up on time with loved ones, read some great books, exercise, and work on some creative projects that have been on the back burner. She also plans to continue supporting students, teachers, and this great field of education. She believes the possibilities in retirement are endless. Ms. Sheila Bellotta has been with the Lunenburg Public Schools for 19 years. She's been a kindergarten teacher. She says that her husband and she own and manage rental properties, which has kept her extra busy through the years and will for many years to come. She says she also has a to-do list that she would like to accomplish, which includes becoming an organ donor. She explains that her daughter had an organ transplant at 7 months old, and she would like to reciprocate to someone who is in need. She says that her family has a place at the Cape, and she's now going to enjoy some time at this home in all seasons, not just the summer. She says that family means everything to her, and she plans to spend as much time together as possible. She's also one of 8 siblings, so she will always have someone to hang out with if her husband and her children are busy. She says that she and her husband have many places that they wish to see and to travel to, and already have 2 trips planned, which are not during a school vacation week. For anyone in education or family members in education, you know the challenges of planning trips. She says she's definitely going to need some time to adjust in the fall, as teaching kindergarten has been a part of her for so many years. She says she's going to miss her student morning hugs and the endless learning that 5- and 6-year-olds partake in. She's going to continue to cherish the many friendships that she formed with colleagues. She says that she has an amazing kindergarten team, and she appreciates all of their years together. And the support from the team never went unnoticed. She also wants to thank the town of Lunenburg, and going back to the very beginning when Cindy Ducantis was the one who hired her into her teaching role here in Lunenburg. She says that she hopes that she's set a foundation for a love of learning in her students, and that they are truly all lifelong learners. Both Ms. Flynn and Ms. Bellata were not able to be here this evening, but we will be sending flowers to them, and they will also receive a certificate. Our last retiree is with us this evening, Mrs. Heidi Champagne, who has also spent 20 years in the Lunenburg Public Schools. She is eager to discover what possibilities exist beyond principalship. She plans to enjoy summer camping, visiting the Cape, and hosting poolside get-togethers for family and friends. And this Monday, this week, she was thrilled to meet her new grandson, Calvin. It was a great day. And she did share some photographs with the staff, and he's a cutie pie for sure. So she intends to steal as much time as possible with him, as much time as the parents will allow the grandparents to spend with the newborn. Beyond that, she says, who knows? She's looking forward to learning new skills and adventuring into new possibilities. And I would just like to offer my gratitude to Heidi. She, in my tenure here, has really been a strong instructional leader. I know that our scores are not reflective of that, but honestly, we just finally this past year got everything in place to make real gains in this area. But she was a partner in making sure that we could get all of those things put into place so that teachers could be supported and in turn support students in their learning. And I have no doubt that we will be seeing the benefits of her instructional leadership even after she's gone. So I'd invite her to come on up. All right, so as we know that there is a principal retiring, we know that there's a new principal coming in to lead the Turkey Hill Elementary from here. So a message was scheduled to go out to all families and staff district-wide at about 6:30. We also sent a message to the Turkey Hill staff a little bit earlier today. But at this point, I am very pleased to announce that Ms. Carla Squire has been appointed as the principal of Turkey Hill Elementary School. I want to thank all of the members of the search committee for their commitment and their time, as well as all the families, faculty, staff, and administrators that provided invaluable feedback on the finalists during the selection process. Throughout the search process, Ms. Squire demonstrated her readiness to be an outstanding educational leader on day one. She brings to the role 26 years of experience in education, 5 of those years as a school administrator, and 21 years as a special educator, including experience as a team chair, a behavior specialist, and an intensive special needs classroom teacher. She meets all the criteria that we were searching for. A strong instructional leader with depth of experience and knowledge in elementary curriculum, assessment, and intervention supports. A student-centered leader with the heart, passion, and strength of character to support teachers and maintain the momentum toward increased student academic growth, performance, and social-emotional well-being. A collaborative leader who will work with families and empower teachers and staff to find creative ways to foster family-school partnerships and meet the needs of all students. A compassionate leader who will foster a climate of care and belonging for students, staff, faculty, and families. And a passionate leader who is a lifelong learner. Ms. Squire holds a bachelor's degree in psychology from the College of Our Lady of the Elms, a master's in education from Simmons College, and she also completed a graduate program at Northeastern University in applied behavior analysis. While she officially starts on July 1st, she will be spending the day with us at Turkey Hill Elementary on June 13th. That is move-up day. So she'll have an opportunity to welcome the incoming Turkey Hill third graders as part of that move-up day. She'll also have some time to visit with all students and staff, and she will be joining us at the literacy night that begins actually in the afternoon. Principal Squire shared the following message upon her hiring. I am truly honored to be chosen as the next principal of Turkey Hill Elementary School. I'm excited to work collaboratively with the wonderful staff and every member of the school community to build upon Turkey Hill's strong foundation and keep our students and staff soaring with success. We are fortunate to have found an administrator of her caliber to lead our students and staff at Turkey Hill. So I hope everyone in the community will join me in welcoming her to the district. And now for the more routine part of the superintendent's report. A final update on family school partnerships, the work that we've been engaged in year-long with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. The team will be presenting on this work to the school committee at the next meeting. You may remember that I told you that one of our primary school classrooms ran a fundraiser, a lemonade stand fundraiser, to raise money to buy stuffed Hanks for Hank and Officer McNamara to share with students who have experienced some trauma. I'm happy to say that on June 2nd, the class presented Officer McNamara with a big check for $5,214. Because they were so successful in the fundraising effort, not only will the money be used to purchase stuffed Hank dogs that Officer McNamara can leave with any children that he visits with, but also to present them to a student monthly at the primary school who has done something kind to help someone else. So that was very exciting.
That's wonderful.
And the PTO, this is a can't miss. It's an awesome event. Their second annual summer kickoff event at Hollis Hills Farm in Fitchburg is this Saturday, June 10th, from 4 p.m. to close. They did schedule a rain date. Hopefully they won't have to use it, but the rain date would be the following day, June 11th. They're planning games and raffles, prizes of all kinds, in addition to Hollis Hills food, drinks, and live music. And they have some really spectacular prizes lined up, I will say. Lastly, some dates in June. The 12th is our all-school Olympics at the primary school. On the 13th, as I've already said, will be the move-up day, as well as the Turkey Hill Literacy Night. Turkey Hill will have their field day for grades 3 and 4 on the 15th. On the 20th, the 5th grade completion ceremony is planned. On the 21st, that's the last day of school, it is an early release for students. It is also our next school committee meeting, which will be at 6:30, hybrid from the middle high school. And lastly, we do have another meeting scheduled in June that's off-cycle, and we push this to the very end of June. That allows the business office to close out as many POs as possible, and then we'll come forward and present to you the any POs that are still open for your approval for carryover. And that's what I have for you this evening. It was a lot.
Thank you very much. I see no student representative. Our student representative, Sean, was one of the happy graduates on Saturday, so we wish him well. And under new business, we have a permission to post.
Good evening, everyone. Mike Cassidy, HR Director and Business Manager. In front of the school committee tonight is 2 proposed stipends that the superintendent and I have been working with the paraprofessional union on over the last couple months. We've really identified a need to shepherd our new hires, our new paraprofessional hires, so they don't feel isolated. And obviously, we want to retain as many paraprofessionals as possible. So this has been in the works for a while. We think we have a good, solid job description for the following. So, so there'll be 4 mentors, 1 in each building in the Lunenburg Public Schools. And I'm going to go in between positions. It's not, it's the only way I can do to describe it. One of them will be the lead. So we're talking 4 paraprofessionals being appointed to these coordinators, but there'll be 1 lead doing some extra management among the paraprofessional other mentor coordinators. This is a model that is used for teachers. We kind of lessened it for paraprofessionals. DESE has a lot of requirements for teachers. This is 8 meetings during the year, some additional meetings among the mentors. So I think that's all I have to say. So it's something that we've been working on with the group. It's the cost for the building-based mentors is $600 for the year. The lead is $850 is what is being proposed. In addition, that lead mentor is going to be on the PD committee and advocate for professional development for paraprofessionals during the school year, for PD days and early release days. So those 2 positions are in front of the school committee for your consideration for posting.
Are there any questions for Mr. Cassidy?
My only question is I think you just outlined probably about $3,400 worth of spending. Is that covered in an existing line?
It'll come out of the school-based account, depending on whether it's not a separate line item. The stipend will come out of the line item that the person is chosen from. So if it's a kindergarten para, we'll increase that by $600.
Salary line for that?
Yes.
Okay.
I think this is a wonderful idea, because knowing how important it is for teachers to have a building-based mentor that they can go to, I think this is great for paraprofessionals. And I think it should help you retain people, because we did have a discussion about them being a turnover, and most of the time it's due to they got a job as a teacher or some other circumstance, but you do want to provide that backup for them. I think this is a great idea.
Thank you.
So, do I have a motion to approve these positions?
I'll make a motion to approve the paraprofessional mentor positions.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. Our next topic is for discussion, and it's something that was brought up quite a bit throughout the school year off and on, and it's something people talk about quite a bit, and it's the topic of bullying. It's a topic that's important to many, many, many people, myself included. And so I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent.
So as we have discussed previously, I had asked the school department's attorney to provide you an overview of the law. She was able to provide a video where she narrates and reviews the slide deck that she's presenting. So what I'd like to do is play that. I will tell everyone it's about 20 minutes, but I think it would give the committee members as well as the general public a sense of the law.
Should probably mention for anyone on Zoom that it's not their audio, it's ours.
Oh, yes, yes, it's ours, not yours.
Let me try this one.
Share my screen, and I will be walking through those with you. Give me one moment. All right, as I said, we're talking about bullying in schools, and specifically Chapter 92 of the Acts of 2010, an act relative to bullying in schools. Briefly, I've laid out what we'll cover in this presentation. We're going to do a little bit of background, legal history, legal requirements of the statute, definitions, myths, how to recognize bullying, and responding to a complaint.
A few technical difficulties
Sorry,
here.
my computer just crashed.
Oh. Was this working before? I'm sure somebody ordered you a name tag. They just take a while.
It spells correctly.
Oh,
I always think of Gary Cooper. when
that's
I
a
hear
win.
Hiccups.
That's a win. I'll take it.
All right.
Here we go.
When you hear somebody giving a speech and it echoes, don't you automatically think of the Lou Gehrig movie? I like you. Here we go.
I have to get back into the meeting. Sure.
I jump, but there's no logical place to jump to.
Say, can we table it and
I mean, yeah, there's
do
no,
reports?
could do that. Let's see.
Is Ray going to States?
He is.
Okay. Isaac wanted me to ask you.
Is Isaac going?
No,
No.
he didn't make it.
Oh.
He's too little.
Yeah, he's going. He, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going. I have to go to school committee training on the Cape on the, Saturday, so I gotta call them and see if I can change my registry. Is it?
The worst.
Is there any chance you can get out early? Have you?
Oh no, it's like super
programmed?
scripted.
Oh God.
So,
Yeah, so I gotta see if I can wiggle my way out and postpone it a week.
Cause wasn't his like best throw like 3 times what anybody else's was?
He should win both the discus and the shot put.
By a large margin.
But yeah, the question, the big question is will he set records?
I think you need a new computer.
My brother-in-law.
It's a meat.
Except this one's only you.
My brother-in-law's the weights guy at UMass.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see what happens.
Isaac's super pumped.
I'd like to go. So,
Isaac will tell you.
hey, that's great. You know.
I went to a track meet in Rhode Island and like took pictures with a bunch of like really good high school runners. So he like knows all these people. He's like, Dad, did you see this one? I'm like, it looks the same kid.
Ray follows this stuff like the professional level.
Yeah.
And, I mean, if you think going to a track meet is boring, listen to an 8th grader talk about track records.
Oh, I know. I'm right there with you. Isaac does
It's
this to
pretty
me.
rough,
It's like, I can't
but
think.
he is into it.
It's really good. It's extraordinarily good. Like when Isaac, so we went out to dinner after the second to the last meet. And it was my dad, my mom, me, my wife, Ethan, and Isaac. And Isaac was like, "You've got to guess what Ray threw at this." We were all guessing. It was so much further than everybody else. I didn't know.
Yeah,
Like start singing. but
You show
I
up.
think that's the way to go.
you show up.
Ray is an unusual combination of incredible.
I did show it.
He's very good.
Yeah, he's kind of a freak. But so his story is during COVID. I mean, he's always been a big kid. During COVID, during hybrid learning,
Challenges is that
It
people
wasn't
in
good.
here aren't going to be able to hear.
I started taking him to Global Fitness
People on Zoom.
for 2 hours every day. I work from home.
What if I ran mine? Would that just echo more? I don't know.
Are we good? Anyway. Sounds like we just need some volume and we're back in action.
We've got the Zoom will probably work, but nobody in the building will hear it.
Well, if we turn off these microphones and turn up the volume, we should be okay.
Drove by the high school the other day and there were kids practicing javelin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
What
So,
is this place?
so anyway, while we were there doing this every day for an hour or two, Steve Kajonian, who's one of our coaches, was like, "Is that your kid?" Yeah. Steve was my high school football coach. And yeah, what grade is he in? Oh, he's in the 6th grade. Yeah. Oh, he could potentially do something here. And we had just graduated a kid who set a school record, and that's all Ray needed to hear. Like, he's been completely focused on the school shot put record.
Oh, he's gonna get that. There's no question.
I don't know, it's 59.5 feet.
Peter, he's gonna get that. There's no question.
He threw 47 in practice yesterday.
Should we send reports?
Could.
Thinking that one's gonna start any second.
I think we should do reports while you're figuring this
He's
out.
6 feet,
that's a good
270.
idea.
Okay.
I mean, he's a
I think what we're going to do, only now I'm echoing for some reason. My thought was that what we would do while we're waiting for this is to go to committee reports, but I think maybe Mrs. Peterson might have it figured out. So we'll hang on a second more.
All right, as I said, we're talking about bullying in schools, and specifically Chapter 92 of the Acts of 2010, an act relative to bullying in schools. Briefly, I've laid out what we'll cover in this presentation. We're going to do a little bit of background legal history, legal requirements of the statute, definitions, myths, how to recognize bullying, and responding to a complaint. The Massachusetts Bullying Prevention Law was enacted in 2010, and it requires all public schools to establish and implement a comprehensive anti-bullying plan. This law sets standards for addressing bullying and provides specific guidance for schools in investigating and responding to incidents of bullying. In addition, it creates specific obligations for teachers, staff, and administrators when responding to instances of bullying. These obligations include reporting and documenting incidents of bullying, investigating allegations of bullying, and providing support for victims of bullying. And I've provided you with some timeline information on this slide. As I mentioned, Chapter 92 of the Acts of 2010, an act relative to bullying in schools, was signed into law on May 3rd, 2010, and it took effect in May. So we are a little over 13 years into our anti-bullying statute in Massachusetts. That law was amended in 2013 to include bullying by school staff. So originally the statute only addressed peer-to-peer bullying, student-to-student bullying. It was amended in 2013 to include bullying by school staff, and not just teachers or administrators, it includes all staff, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, paraprofessionals, custodians. There's a long list of staff, coaches, so it can be basically anyone who works in the school is also covered by this anti-bullying law. And then again in 2014, the statute was amended, and it was signed into law on April 24th, 2014, and this amendment required school districts to recognize within their bullying prevention and intervention plans that there are certain categories of students that may be more vulnerable to bullying, and to provide within that plan specific steps that they are going to take to support those individuals. So what does the law require? The law requires school leaders to create and implement strategies to prevent bullying and to address bullying and retaliation promptly and effectively if and when they do occur. Schools have done this by creating plans known as bullying prevention and intervention plans. Every school will have one of these plans, and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education also has a model plan, which many school districts have used as a base for their own plans. The law sets out the specific components of the bullying prevention and intervention plan, which all school districts are required to include. And this includes definitions, how to report instances of bullying or retaliation, available resources, specific steps for supporting and working with vulnerable populations, training and notification, and dispute resolution options. An individual district's behavior and bullying prevention and intervention plan would also address data collection and reporting obligations. And in 2014, the amendment to the bullying law provides that each school should survey at least once every 4 years to assess school climate and the prevalence, nature, and severity of bullying in schools. Where can you find a copy of Lunenburg's Bullying Prevention and Intervention Plan? So a copy of Lunenburg's plan can be found online. The school district has an entire webpage dedicated to bullying. So you can find a copy of Lunenburg's Bullying Prevention and Intervention Plan on the website that I've provided for you here. There's also included on that website or webpage a copy of this school district's bullying report and incident reporting form. This is a form that you can use to file a complaint or alleged bullying. You don't have to use this form, but it is a helpful resource if you are looking to report an incident of bullying. The website also includes tips and resources for family and parents, information about how reports can be made and who to report to, and a copy of the school district's anti-bullying and harassment policy. Now, when we talk about bullying, it's important to understand how bullying is defined, and the statute has a very specific definition. Under the statute, bullying is defined as the repeated use by one or more students or a member of the school staff of a written, verbal, or electronic expression or a physical act or gesture or any combination thereof directed at a target that 1. Causes physical or emotional harm to the target or damage to the target's property. 2. Places the target in reasonable fear of harm to him or herself or damage to his or her property. 3. Creates a hostile environment at school for the target. Or infringes on the rights of the target at school. Or 5. Materially and substantially disrupts the education process or the orderly operation of school. And for the purposes of requirements related to this law, bullying in this definition also includes cyberbullying. And this is taken directly from the Mass General Laws. I've got it cited down there below. Mass General Laws, Chapter 71, Section 37O. Acts of bullying, which as we just mentioned also includes cyberbullying, are prohibited on school grounds and property immediately adjacent to school grounds, at a school-sponsored or school-related activity, function, or program, whether on or off school grounds, at a school bus stop, on a school bus or other vehicle owned, leased, or used by a school district or a school, or through the use of technology or an electronic device owned, leased, or used by the school district. So what we're talking about there are school-sponsored events, school property, school-used vehicles, and of course, bullying is prohibited at any of those locations or in any of those vehicles. But bullying can also be prohibited at a location, activity, function, or program that is not school-related through the use of technology or electronic devices that are not owned, leased, or used by a school district or a school. If the acts create a hostile environment at school for the target or witness, or infringe on their rights at school, or materially and substantially disrupt the education process or the orderly operation of a school. So even if something happens outside of school, if it comes back and has an impact on an individual in school, then it can also be prohibited conduct. And of course, just to keep in mind, cyberbullying can occur during school, before or after school, or during remote learning. Not as much, thankfully, of an issue anymore, but it's important to keep in mind. Bullying includes an attack or intimidation with the intent to cause fear, distress, or harm. It includes a real or perceived imbalance of power between the bully and the target or victim. And it's repeated attacks or intimidation between the same students or the same individuals over time. And just to provide a little bit more information about cyberbullying, cyberbullying is bullying using electronic devices such as cell phones, computers, and tablets, or other communication tools including social media sites, text messages, chat rooms, and websites. And it is the willful and repeated harm inflicted through the use of computers, cell phones, and other electronic devices. So just to break this down a little bit more for us, some of the terms that we were talking about when we were looking at the definition of bullying. So what does it mean by an imbalance of power? An imbalance of power involves the use of physical strength, popularity, or access to embarrassing information to hurt or control another person. A bully has actual or perceived physical, social, and/or psychological power over his or her target or victim. And then the repetition piece is important because if you think back to the definition that we read straight from the statute a few slides ago, bullying is defined as the repeated use by one or more students. So there is a repetition component to bullying. Bullying is typically a repeated action occurring more than once and having the potential to occur more than once. There are 3 broad forms of bullying, including physical, verbal, and social bullying, and all 3 are intentional acts of aggression. Physical involves injuring someone or damaging property. Verbal involves saying or writing things that are mean or hurtful to others. And social damages someone's reputation or relationships. It's important to keep in mind, however, that not all conflict is bullying, and this can be one of the tricky things for all of us to try to understand as we're assessing behavior or conduct, which we think is or is not bullying. So conflict is a word used to describe when people are not getting along or when there's a problem between 2 or more people. And there are 4 kinds of conflict most often seen in school. There's disagreement, rude moments, mean moments, and then there's bullying. So we're just going to take a look at each of these so that we can understand the continuum of conflict, to understand where some of the behaviors that you may see or observe fall, so that you can understand how they may be treated relative to the anti-bullying law. Disagreements. Disagreements happen when people have different ideas about something. Usually no one's feelings get hurt, and it can run the gamut to coming up with an answer to a problem, a different answer to a problem than someone else, disagreeing over what movie is better, or what your favorite episode of a show is, or whose turn it is in a game, or whose turn it is to be the leader, or the class leader for one class or another. So those are disagreements, and they can be hard depending on your age to work through, but they're just one type of conflict, and they don't rise to the level of bullying. You then have rude moments, hurting someone's body or feelings on accident. So someone is not being careful with their body, or someone is not thinking about another person and says or does something that is rude. So you might cut someone in line, you might bump up against someone, you might interrupt someone. These are rude moments. Next, you have mean moments, and this is hurting someone's body or feelings on purpose. This is something, a mean moment is something that happens just one time or every once in a while. And examples of this are calling someone a name, telling someone that they cannot play with you or they can't sit with you today, making fun of someone's clothes, stealing from someone, or leaving them out. Again, this is done, it's on purpose, but it's happening just one time or every once in a while. Compare that with bullying. Bullying is hurting someone's body or feelings on purpose, but it happens more than once. It's repeated. In addition, the person doing the hurting has more power. They may be older, they may be bigger, they may be actually or perceived to be more popular. It may be more than one person, it may be a group of people, or it may be someone that the target or the victim is afraid of. Bullying can include threatening someone every day, getting other people to be mean to someone or to leave someone out. And it can be two kids who always makes fun of someone because they have a really hard time and fill in the blank. They may have a hard time reading, they may pick on someone or bullying them because they have a hard time reading aloud, they may not be good at math, they may not be very good at physical education, perhaps they're not athletic. And so if someone is repeatedly making fun of someone as a result of something like that, that could be bullying. To be considered bullying, behavior must occur or present the threat of occurring on a repetitive basis. This is one of the features that distinguishes bullying from other forms of peer harassment or conflict. However, just because a hurtful behavior only happens once doesn't mean that it should be ignored. It just means that it's not accurate to refer to it as bullying. Part of the reason bullying can be so emotionally or psychologically damaging is because it is repetitive. It also doesn't mean that just because something is not bullying, that it does not get addressed or that there's nothing that can be done. Mean moments or rude moments can still have an impact on the victim, and they are still teachable moments. It just means that the requirement of the statute is not triggered in terms of what needs to happen under the bullying prevention and intervention plan. So let's talk a little bit about bullying and harassment myths. So there's a lot of them out there, and it's helpful to just refresh our memory. A lot of times you'll hear people respond this way, or you'll think it yourself. If someone is reporting something to you, you'll say, just ignore it, it'll go away. Bullying does not occur if you stand up for yourself. The victim must have done something to cause or deserve the bullying. You may look at certain behavior and just think to yourself, oh, boys will be boys or girls will be girls. Some may have the opinion that harassment or bullying can toughen you up, that it's a part of life and you just have to accept it. Only wimps get bullied. Children who get harassed or bullied are passive, loners, overly sensitive individuals, or adults do not bully. So if any of those rang true to you, or you have found yourself thinking that at any point, you just might want to do a self-check. If you see, observe, or you have anyone report something to you, remember to just take a little personal inventory about how you respond to that and make sure that you are not dissuading someone from bringing a complaint forward or not bringing a complaint forward on their behalf if they have confided in you behavior or conduct that may amount to bullying. How are some ways to recognize bullying? So an individual might indicate fear of walking in the halls unsupervised. They may show signs of being intimidated when interacting with certain students in class, cafeterias, or hallways. They may be fearful of walking to and from school. They may seem withdrawn or disengaged in a particular class. They may no longer participate in class or school-related activities. They may start to withdraw from things that they had previously found enjoyment in, suddenly start doing poorly in school. You may see an increase of absences, or a student may arrive late for school or for only certain classes. A student may lose things often. They may lose their money. They may lose their lunch. The victim may, the person being bullied may be a victim of repeated thefts. You may recognize someone as being a target of jokes, abuse, or insults in schools, chat rooms, websites, or social networking sites. And if you are speaking with a student or other individual about any of the above that you recognize and the explanations that they're giving simply do not make sense as they're trying to explain away certain behavior, it may be that they are making excuses or making something up to try to avoid having attention paid to them. Now, what do you do if you observe or suspect bullying? Lunenburg expects and encourages students, parents, or guardians, and others who witness or become aware of an instance of bullying or retaliation involving a student or staff member to report it to the principal or designee, or the superintendent or designee when the principal or assistant or principal is the alleged aggressor. Students, parents, and guardians, and others may request assistance from a staff member to complete a written report. As we mentioned, there is a reporting form on the website. There's also information about who you could reach out to or speak to if you think that you may have something to report or you're uncertain about whether you should report something. There's contact information that you can report and reach out to someone to get more information and support from. Students who report will be provided safe, practical, private, and age-appropriate ways to report and discuss an incident of bullying with a staff member or with the principal or designee, or with the superintendent if the principal or assistant principal is the alleged aggressor. Now, just because something is reported as bullying does not mean that it is bullying, and as a reporter, it is not your obligation to be sure that something is bullying before you report it. The responsibility is on the leaders in each school to investigate and respond to the bullying or other type of conflict and provide appropriate resources and support. How do we respond to a complaint? So each bullying prevention and intervention plan, including Lunenburg's, provides clear procedures for students, staff, parents, guardians, and others to report bullying or retaliation, and for promptly responding to and investigating reports of bullying or retaliation. Reports can be made anonymously, but it's important to keep in mind that no disciplinary action will be taken solely on the basis of an anonymous report. However, an anonymous report may give administration something to look into or to take some action on. Responses to bullying, including discipline, should balance the need for accountability with the need to teach appropriate behavior. When investigations conclude that bullying has occurred, notice should be provided to the parents and guardians of the victim, including what actions will be taken to prevent further incidents. Notice should be provided to the parents or guardians of the aggressor, and immediate notice should be provided to law enforcement when necessary, depending on what the conduct is. I know we covered a lot of information in a short amount of time. There are a lot of resources available out there. There are quite a few of them available right on the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's website. So in addition to the resources available on Lunenburg's website, I would suggest that anyone who is interested could also visit the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's website, and they have a lot of additional resources there for anyone who continues to have questions about this topic. Thank you very much. Hope this has been helpful. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Well, and thank you very much for figuring all of that out. We appreciate that. What Dr. Burnham and I had talked about is, obviously, that in the matter of law, we wouldn't be the first people to know the answers to questions, but if anyone on the committee does have questions, Dr. Burnham said she would take those questions down and get them to Ms. Murray to be answered. So,
Yes, if there are questions specific to the law.
to the law.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think you're on mute.
Oh.
you hear us now?
Yep, I can hear now.
Okay. So the
Perfect.
comment was, we'll try again, take two. The comment was that if anyone on the committee had questions regarding the law, that Dr. Burnham would take those questions down and forward them to Ms. Murray.
Correct. However, I think that some of the challenge is really coming from the perception amongst people in the community that if an administrator reports that it is not a situation that's found to be bullying, that nothing is done. So this evening, we have our principals. Additionally, we have Mr. Palumbo, who's an assistant principal at Turkey Hill, but he has spent many years as an adjustment counselor and is very familiar with helping students navigate this type of experience, as well as Stephanie Miller, who is a social worker working with our lower grades. And we also have Mrs. Hanscom here tonight in case there's any particular question relative to special education. So I would invite all of those folks to come on up to the table. There are microphones there. So maybe one of the principals might want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we have around helping parents feel that they have been heard, there has been a response.
What did he say? What did he say? He said,
When you guys want to talk, you just need to press the button and it'll turn. There you go.
Because part of the challenge is a different law around student confidentiality. So oftentimes, if it's not a situation of bullying, the disciplinary action that may follow is not something that can be disclosed. And I think that that leads to some challenges potentially with trust between the parent and the administration, or the misperception that it just hasn't been handled. So from their perspective, they may want to speak a little bit about, some of the challenges with this perception out there in the community, and the types of things that we do in order to help kiddos navigate conflict at the different grade levels. So do you want to start off, Mr. Santry?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Burnham. I like the PowerPoint presentation and the information Melissa provided. I guess the first thing I would say is any type of separation from conflict or bullying, anything that's reported to the school, we immediately investigate that. So we kind of have like a path that we do. We investigate, we communicate to parents what we're doing, then we're educating the students on what's going to be expected, then we discipline, and then we re-communicate with parents about what we feel our expectations are. So those situations happen, whether it's the 4 different types of conflict that were talked about in the slide deck, or if that fits that extremely tight, narrow criteria that Melissa was talking about that meets bullying. So sometimes parents call us and the biggest thing in their world has been upset, which is their child, and they're using that term bullying as they've heard on TV or they've heard on Facebook or they've heard anywhere else that their child's being mistreated. We are not minimizing that fact. We totally understand that. We're going to investigate that. We're going to make sure that that stops. We're going to communicate out to parents what we did. We're going to make sure there are services for each student with that conflict that happened. But whether that incident fell within that very finite criteria of bullying is something that we do down in the line. Like we said, it's a repeated response from a power differential that happens over a period of time between two peers. So sometimes I think, being a parent myself, being someone that's reported bad behavior to a school from both of my kids, we are heightened when we make that phone call. We are upset. Someone has upset my child, and I want it stopped immediately. So when we say that might not be bullying, that doesn't exactly calm the situation down. Sometimes parents are hearing, my child's being bullied, and nobody's doing anything about it. They're not hearing that we're taking this situation seriously. We're going to investigate this. We're going to make sure that these things stop. We're going to consequence or discipline that situation, and then we're going to educate those students through social skills or social scripting or working with our guidance counselors or working with our school psychologist, working with our social workers to ensure that those things don't happen again. So as a parent, I can feel that angst when you're calling a school and saying that my child's being mistreated. It's one of the worst phone calls you can make. Parents are upset. We aren't minimizing that. We are saying that possibly that behavior doesn't fit a very tight criteria for what bullying is. It doesn't mean that we're not taking it seriously, and it doesn't mean that we're not consequencing it. So due to student privacy laws, is that we can't always communicate out what the discipline has been for a student who has been, that has had conflict. That is, we had a punch in school, or they tripped me, or said something mean to me on social media. We communicate out with the parents that we are dealing with that situation, that we are pretty sure that that's not going to happen again. These are the support systems that we've put into place. These are the things that we're going to do to ensure that it doesn't happen again. And please feel free to continue to communicate with us. And we're going to document this. So this is a documentation for that repetitive behavior that does fit the criteria of bullying. So now that we have, some documentation that if we had another incident or another conflict, that now that kind of widens that narrow criteria for bullying, right? So now it's happened more than once. It's been addressed by adults. We've provided some education on why that can't happen, but that behavior continues to happen. So now on that second or third call, that is when it's fitting that criteria for bullying, and that is when we're filling out bullying reports, we're following the letter of the law, we're communicating with both parents. Some of the services that we provide for students who have been bullied, we have check-in programs on varying degrees. Sometimes it's once a day when they come into school. Sometimes it's 3 times a day. Sometimes we have almost like a Google Sheet where we're checking in with them period by period to make sure that they feel okay, they feel safe in our school, and that the adults are aware that we need to pay special attention to make sure that this child feels safe. So those are some of the things that we do. Those are some of the supports that we have, and those are some of the things that we face, me being a parent on the other side. I understand that when I'm reporting out a behavior to school, that I am heightened, and I've used the word bullying when it didn't fit the criteria of bullying. It was because I was very upset that someone was mistreating my child. But that's something that we work through when we talk about those things. So I didn't want parents to think that we aren't taking that conflict seriously. We are. And sometimes that we can't report out the disciplinary consequences that we put into place so those things don't happen again, and all the communication with all the stakeholders and all the things that have happened in that school. So those are some of the things that we do at the middle and the high school.
And I'd offer an opportunity for either of the other principals to jump in and
Good evening, and I would certainly support everything that Mr. Santry has suggested. I would suggest that our primary responsibility, even before the academic success for our students, is to provide a safe atmosphere. We all take that very, very seriously. We understand, both as parents, and every administrator at this table is a parent, and as professionals, that is job one. So whenever there is a complaint of bad behavior of one child towards another, we investigate that with great fidelity, which is no easy task when you're talking about 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds or 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds, and you're listening to 5 different versions of what may have occurred, right? And you're trying to come to some truth. And in fact, one parent said to me today, I understand there's 3 versions. There's this one's version, and then somewhere in the middle, some truth. But we spend so much time doing that because it's incredibly important for us to be fair in however it plays out, whatever our judgment is, whatever the discipline involved is. Otherwise, it's not successful. We want children to be able to gain a sense of responsibility about their actions, to be able to, as we say, own it, right? Learn from it, and then move on. It's not a label, oh, you've done this thing, this describes to us who you are. It is one action, or in the case of bullying, more than one action, that needs to be addressed and that we hope that they can learn from. I think that's an important facet of school. It's that social connectedness and how we deal with our friends and people who we don't consider our friends, and again, that sense of responsibility. That's just the piece that I wanted to add, and I wanted to give Mr. Palumbo a quick chance to join in.
Thanks, Mrs. Champagne. So, as she said, and Mr. Santry said, we really want to get it right. So that will mean usually an extensive investigation, because we want to protect the child who's being harmed, but we also don't want to label the other one as a bully if that's not in fact what that child is, if it was a mean moment or a rude moment or what have you. I know that I just wanted to address what we do, right? How we handle complaints and situations. So this year we've had 99 discipline reports, right? And those are ranging from physical aggression, non-compliance, maybe a technology violation, harassment, bullying, all the way down to being too rough, right? So we have 99 total. So we had 10 suspensions, 12 long-term bus restrictions, 40 detentions, and we also have a log of parent calls. So I have about 110 calls to parents about these issues.
Excuse me, just,
yeah.
Is this one building or all?
So it's just Turkey Hill.
Okay.
This is grades 3 through 5.
Just want to make sure.
Yeah. What do you mean by suspensions?
So in or out of school suspension. Okay. So we've had
What's the
10
breakdown
of those.
in versus out?
5 and 5. In school was 5 and out of school was 5.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And then of the 8 bullying investigations, we had 5 with no finding, and 3 were labeled as harassment just due to the lack of repeated offenses. So, but one of the things we try to do at Turkey Hill, and we think it's working when we compare it to last year, because at this time we had 153 incidents, referrals, so now down to 99, that's, it's pretty good. Cut it down by, a third. But the proactive measures that we think are helping, one of the things is we deal with whatever's reported, no matter how small it seems, because there might be more to the story, and there might be, something else going on, but also that every child feels heard. So even if someone called them like a dummy or something like that. Like, we want to get in there and deal with it because there might be more to it. That hurts to a third grader. But what we're doing, we have the social emotional learning, the SEL. So we have tier 1, where the students learn the social skills in the classroom setting. So with their peers, 22 to 24 students. We also have tier 2, which provides more targeted support for students in small groups that might need a little more help with relationship building, managing their emotions, things like that. The other thing we've done, I know that Chad's done it as well as a primary school, we do PBIS, positive behavior, intervention and support. So each area of our building, whether it's the CAF, recess, we're trying on the bus, we have our expectations on the bus, but we have signs and things where we want kids to follow those rules, particular that situation. So one of the things we do is we gather detailed data on where are these issues happening, right? So, for example, at recess, 16% of our incidents are at recess versus the bus, which is 32%. So we try to hone in on where do we need to reteach these kids. Lunch is actually pretty low, right? It's under 10% now, and the hallways are at 9. So, we're kind of, those areas seem to be in control. We have to focus more on the bus this upcoming year, and really get those expectations down for the kids. The other thing we added in this year was restorative measures. So we have sit-downs, mediations, apologies with the kids. And what I noticed compared to last year, we have less repeat offenders with the mean moments, right? Because we try to address those when they first happen, so we don't see them happen again. I don't get the same names popping up. I do have a few, right? We do have some kids that, struggle with that, but for the most part, it's a one and done for these kids because we do that restorative practice with them. So.
Sorry.
Okay, Tony?
How much of the bullying that you guys see is based on either race, gender, or sexual orientation?
So, all right, so none of the reports that I've had are based on that.
Is it because they're funneled into a Title IX or because they aren't there?
I haven't had any this year that because of race or gender or sexual orientation. It's just been, one kid said another kid couldn't play at recess repeatedly, right? Like, Tim may have more experience with that, but it's pretty cut and dry at Turkey Hill.
No, we have had behavioral incidences with those, but not on a repeated measure after that it's been addressed by people in the building and that we provide the education around that. And we haven't had a Title IX case.
And LPS, the same thing?
No, we've actually had one that was bullying based on race. But that was our only bullying report. We've had a total of 4 bullying reports that we've investigated.
And how many bullying reports?
We've had 8, but we've had...
How many the year before?
We actually had less the year before. We had 5 the year before, and we were talking about that this afternoon.
Yeah.
I think it's because also we're looking for it more, right? And we jump into action faster now, so...
We had 0 the year before.
Mr. Beardmore?
Before I ask a question, did you have commentary specifically for the primary school? And I don't want to jump ahead in the scenario of events here, so I'm sorry.
So what you're going to hear, I don't want to repeat a lot of the strategies and things that take place because it's best practice. It's how we've been trained. It's what the law requires. And we've all worked with each other, and we've always had that commonality on how to approach behavioral management in general. I want everybody to understand that safety is the number one goal. I want kids to want to come to school. I don't want them to be afraid to come to school for any reason. The number one goal for all of us is to have any negative behaviors that affect any part of a student's day stop. But that requires, the investigation piece, It requires, like I said, I don't want to go through everything, but it's going to require education on an aggressor's part. It's going to require protection on a target's part, possibly, right? In any situation. We investigate all bullying reports. Most of our bullying reports from my building can either come through an email or a phone call. Very rarely do they go through a teacher. Very rarely do we see a written report. It's either an email directly to administration or school adjustment counselors, or a phone call to us. The other thing I want everybody to keep in mind too is every investigation is an independent entity. It's not the same. It's a case-by-case basis, I guess, is what I'm going to say, because it's going to depend, and the outcomes are going to be set up the same way, depending on what happens with those investigations. So even if we do a bullying investigation, we find it's a mean behavior, depending on the situation and what the mean behavior was, the outcomes are going to be, widely different. We look at that from a progressive discipline standpoint. It's when we start collecting that data and we start seeing that repeated pattern that the progressive discipline starts to increase. So,
Who investigates specifically? Is there a team at each school?
administration, it would be the principal and assistant principal.
Okay.
If we need to pull in a school adjustment counselor, depending on the situation, if it's a sensitive situation, we might ask them to just ask a few questions to add to our reports.
Okay.
Or if they have information from a check-in from a student.
Okay. And about how long does the investigation take?
That depends. Like I said, it's a case by case.
Okay.
Mrs. Champagne did one today that, I think, 5 hours? Yeah, no exaggeration, it was 5 hours, yeah.
Tony?
This is for the three principals. Do you think that it would be helpful if there was one person in the district that did all of these investigations, or is it better to do them on a school-by-school basis?
Nobody's ever asked me that question before, Mrs. Scolambrini. No, I've always been a proponent that each school has, the developmental needs of students are different. So I'm not sure if you had one person dealing with investigations over 4 schools, that's going to make it any more equal because of, the developmental age and the processes that go through. So just processing through that question for the first time, that would be my answer.
And I would suggest that if we had only one in the district, knowing that one investigation occurred today, it took 5 hours, and I would dare say that on any given day, you may have an issue that they're investigating in all 4 buildings. So I don't know that having a single investigator in the district would expedite any.
And I would say too that you would pass up on that adult being in a school that had a relationship with the students, that understand who knows who, these were friends, these were enemies, they had a past, those types of things where, an administrator would be privy to that information.
There's a lot of context, right, about who's reporting and what the background might be. And I think that's pretty valid information that would be found at the school site, not by someone who, for example, sits at central office.
The other thing would be the timely feedback to parents. Like, we have an obligation to conclude these investigations as quickly as possible. So if somebody is doing an investigation at the high school, but I also have an issue in my building, if they take 3 or 4 days at the high school, then my time window becomes longer, and that's not okay either. So.
Okay, Brian?
This is more of a special education question, but can you explain to the public manifestation determination?
So after a student that is on an IEP or on a 504 has been suspended for more than 10 days, and it doesn't have to be in succession, it can be over the course of an entire school year, we're obligated to call a meeting to have a manifestation determination. And in that, we consider if the disability has affected those suspensions, and then if so, we need to work on amending the IEP or looking at other solutions to help move forward to make sure that the student gets the support that they need.
Thank you.
And we do have a script that's consistent through each of the buildings for the team chair or for the administrator to lead those meetings so that it's consistent across that and make sure that we hit on every question and to meet the regulation on that for the manifestation meetings. Thank you.
And if you want me to just add a little bit, Juliana, you told me this, is that through the IEP process, there are, I believe it's 12 or 13 questions that are asked of every student on an IEP that has a disability about, are they more susceptible to bullying, or are they more susceptible to being a bully, and what supports can we put into place for them in this IEP if that is what the team determines during that meeting.
Yeah, that's a question that's asked at every single IEP meeting where we're developing an IEP. And so it opens up not only for the team to address that, to really talk to the student's needs and what that student may need, but I also feel that it opens up the door for parents to be able to maybe bring forward some things that they may have concerns with too. And so it gives that opening to maybe have that discussion at the team meetings.
Peter?
First of all, thank you all for putting this together. I think this is unfortunately a little bit overdue, but I'm glad we're doing it, and I'm wondering how we might be able to leverage this content for a variety of different purposes for outreach and education and that sort of thing. I have a few questions, and let me preface this by saying that, this is largely informed. My context here is the one source of truth in Lunenburg, which is Facebook. But quite honestly, as a school committee member, a lot of the questions that I ask the superintendent and the chair frequently are raised through conversations and posts that I see on Facebook. I actually get calls from other parents. I think just because I'm in the community and people know me and I am active in sports programs and other things, I do get calls, but not on this topic. The calls that I get don't relate to bullying, but I see a lot of commentary in social media about bullying and about student behavior, and there's always this perception from the commenters that I'm just ignored. Lunenburg doesn't do anything. That place is crazy. There's no control over it. Now, I don't believe any of that to be true, and I think that the commentary that we see here tonight is a reflection of what I believe to be true. But I think that there are perception issues here. And part of it is just general trust issues that I think we have with parents. But I think it's also part of what we're going to talk about at our next meeting, right? Which is communication and outreach and community building and those kinds of things. Your schools are small schools. And when there's a perception that a kid has been bullied by another kid, it's not like that he's not going to see or she's not going to see that other kid tomorrow or the next day or next week or next school year or until graduation, right? They're always there. And the kid and the parent still has that perception of that ongoing relationship until the point of somebody moves away or graduates. And so these are issues that are going to last a long time when they come up. As Mr. Adams was talking, I recalled a call that I made to him many years ago. It wasn't a bullying conversation, but I was an irate parent over an incident. I happened to be overseas at the time on a business trip, and I was not letting him off the phone. And so I identify with that visceral reaction that a parent has when they think that they or their kid have been aggrieved. And so that follow-up, that communication, given a lot of these limitations that you have around privacy, is a really hard thing to overcome, I would imagine, right? That makes your jobs really, really challenging. So my questions are kind of in that area, right? First of all, and this is a legal question, and we may not have an answer, but are the laws that we saw today that are applicable to Lunenburg Public Schools, are they any different for a charter school in Massachusetts or a parochial school in Massachusetts or any other school? Okay, so I think that that's an important thing, right? What we have to follow here in Lunenburg is the same as every other K through 12 educational institution in the state. What is done to educate parents on that is not contained to an incident? In other words, like you have an open house at the beginning of the year, or there are Friday notices, or there are other things that are going on. Is there any outreach that is happening at a building level to parents that says, this is how we deal with behavior and potential bullying issues, and this is what your expectations should be in the event of an incident?
So I'll jump in on this one. That was a point of discussion that came up a little while ago. We all felt that while that is important information to have at an open house, that may not be the perfect time to bring that up. So what we talked about was a possibility, at least in my building, is having a separate meeting after the open house for people who want to come, as one way to communicate that information. The fantastic presentations that Ms. Miller and Ms. Woods put together for our students, we've also shared those with parents, so they have some kind of idea of the language we're using with students and what we're working on with them. So those will continue to be shared, because, I mean, they're still relevant. It's not going to be dated material. So we'll be using those to share. Also, I think, the handbooks, I know it's always a tough thing, but there's information in the handbooks. There's information on the school website. So I think I'm going to start, at least in my building next year, we'll probably start with like a separate meeting for things like that, because it does have to be brought up, just for that reason. Because reports are given to us of bullying, and it was a mean moment, or it was a rude moment as you go through the investigation. And I know, sometimes that's hard for parents to hear, and I understand that. But we always make sure that, we do our due diligence with these investigations. So those kinds of conversations, maybe opening that up and just telling them, like maybe repeating the same process that we did here tonight, but for parents at a separate time. I definitely don't want to do it at an open house.
Yeah.
Welcome to the primary school.
This is what happens.
This is what happens if your kid gets in trouble.
Right.
So.
I have a couple of follow-ups, but I wanted to.
All right.
So you outlined some processes tonight. I think that they're really well thought out processes. The most important thing being, well, it's all important. There's no most important thing, but one of the critical pieces when it comes to building that sense of trust and communication is following up with the aggrieved parent or the aggrieved kid, or, and making sure that they understand that while they may not know all the particulars of the outcome, it has been investigated. And I actually do think, most importantly, that the kid feels safe. Does that happen every time? Do we know that to be the case? And is there adequate follow-up?
Do you want me to start?
Sure.
I can say that every time that a misbehavior or an incident, or what we call them, mean moments, or any phone call, email from a parent around the behavior in our building or behavior that affects a student is followed up with by the assistant principals in my building. They take that very seriously. They're communication experts. They're calling parents to let them know that they've been heard about what their report is, and then what we're doing, like I said, in order to make sure that this behavior stops. So nothing's 100%, but that is our goal. That is one of our communication goals, is to be able to reach out to parents when they're reaching out to us to make sure that their kids are safe.
But, Mr. Beardmore, I would add that, as you suggested in your own case, right, that you had this very strong reaction and you really needed to express it to Mr. Adams at that time. I think the frustration comes in at the end of that process when he assures you, yes, it's been dealt with, it's been investigated, it's been properly handled. But you want to know,
Right.
what does that mean?
Yeah.
What was the outcome, right? And the confidentiality of that piece, I think that continues to cause a frustration for parents. Even when we have the initial conversation, perhaps we're saying something like, well, I can't tell you the name of the other student involved, but who was it? Was it this child who's bothered my child before? Those are, I think, some of the obstacles that get in the way for us and for parents.
Laura? So I found the presentation, the highlighting of mean moments versus systemic bullying incredibly helpful as a parent, because I'm the mom of a middle schooler, and there are a lot of mean moments because they're learning, and these are kids that went through COVID and spent time isolated, and there are a lot of mean moments. And looking through the presentation, a lot of them most of them don't rise to the level of bullying. So I think we, as a school district, really need to highlight that difference between the bullying and the mean moments, because I think a lot of the times we're saying, oh, it's bullying, we have a problem with bullying. I think we might have a little bit of a problem with mean moments, but I also think we're working on that. We have the guidance team, they're great with the communication, especially when they're calling home the middle school when they call and say there's been an issue and feeling heard. So my question is there a difference in the pathway of communication with parents if there is found to be bullying versus a mean moment? So if a parent calls and says, I think my kid's being bullied, and you investigate and it was okay, there was an incident, it was a one-time, or, it was a one-off, two-off kind of thing, or, okay, no, your child is being bullied. Is the communication with the parents different depending on the finding?
I'm just going to clarify that. Do you mean, is it written as opposed to a verbal conversation or a meeting?
No, when you communicate with the parents, when you talk to them, do they know more about what's going on? Do you tell them it was bullying? Or is it the same, there was an issue, it's been dealt with?
Do you mind if I answer that? So I think that if it does fit that criteria of bullying, it does, as Melissa was explaining, it now hits that criteria that we're filling out a bullying report is a repetitive behavior as part of our process. We would be calling parents in for a meeting on both sides of that, and that, so I think our communication would be a little bit different. It might not be a phone call saying it's a mean moment. That's when maybe we're getting parents in here to have discussions about what types of services that we can provide in order to make sure that this stops. Does that make sense?
Okay, but are they being specifically?
If it hit the criteria of bullying, yes, because there would be a bullying report filled out, and I would say that this did fit the criteria of bullying.
It's actually
The
part of the
parents would
requirement
know.
for filling out the
Okay,
form.
the school fills out?
The form, it's part of the requirement,
Okay.
yeah,
And
in that
all of-
case.
Any of the findings, too, are reported to the state as part of our state data reporting.
Tony?
So I have a child in the primary school and in the middle school. And when you did send stuff home, and when it came home, we had a conversation. And the primary school student, I think it was based on something that he learned from Miss Miller, explained mean moments versus bullying. And I'd never heard that conversation before. But when I was talking about it, it seemed that
Lawyer's kid.
What?
Lawyer's kid.
Yeah, he had a really good. No. It only happened once. That's a mean moment. Sorry. What kind of education takes place at the middle school and the at the elementary school and the high school on this front? Because he had a really good keyed in idea, and it probably answers 90% of the bullying claims that you guys get, which is has to happen more than once. But how do you explain that to the older kids, and do you explain that in the same way? I don't think Miss Miller goes to their classes, but do the equivalents of Miss Miller go to their classes and talk to them about it?
Yes, so in the middle school, we have dedicated guidance classes with guidance counselors that go in during enrichment blocks, and they actually teach a curriculum, part of that being Trails to Wellness, but another part of it around being not...
Mike?
Sorry. Not actually the language mean moments and bullying, but really what healthy relationships look like and what good friendships look like, and those types of a little bit more mature discussions around that, and those lead into our 9th grade health classes when we're having discussions around what healthy relationships look like.
Go ahead.
So I'm very glad to hear that he enjoyed the presentation. It definitely is difficult presenting to an entire grade all at once. So we did do a presentation that was on the difference between, types of conflict. So disagreements, rude moments, mean moments, and then what constitutes bullying. For the 1st and 2nd graders, we outlined it exactly how they did in the presentation. For the kindergartners, we made it a little bit more developmentally appropriate, but in all of those situations, what we did was we had students identify who they could go to at the school if they were having an issue, as well as yell very loudly, which they enjoyed, some self-advocacy statements to practice what they could say either if someone was bullying them or if they saw somebody else being bullied. So how to be an upstander, but in a way that's going to be helpful. And then in addition to that, the most recent presentation that we did do was on diversity and differences. So we explained to the students how it's okay to be curious about certain things that might be different or unique. However, it is important to be kind and respectful if you do have questions to sort of help them with those social interactions. So those are 2 of the grade level presentations that we did, but just as we said as well, we do have the social emotional learning classes I teach in kindergarten, and then Miss Ward teaches in 1st and 2nd grade, and those do support children in a lot of different tenets of responsible decision making, emotional regulation, pro-social skills with other students. So those are accessible to all students, and then the presentations were just supplemental in that regard.
We have the same, and in addition, we also, at both the primary and the elementary school, we have the opportunity to invite in the Tiger program from Plymouth State, which is just an excellent presentation about how to be a good friend. And what did you call it? An upstander, right? How to stick up for people when your peers, when you see bad behavior going on. And then the 4th grade actually gets a follow-up. The participants from that Tiger program, they go and provide workshops for each of the 4th grade classes. So that's an annual presentation that we have.
In this year and in past years, we also have a district attorney come in from Worcester County, and they are doing age-appropriate bullying and, social media use and the problems that arise and what can happen if you are using those tools inappropriately. So we had those for our 8th grade this year, and we had them for 9 through 11 at the high school. We plan on having them back. We have talked, it was very successful this year. So they do have one for grades 6 and 7, so we'll be arranging that for our students also.
And one last one, we also have the responsive classroom program for all of our homerooms. So that's sort of a 20-minute morning meeting. It's an opportunity to develop classroom community. They have a share, an activity, a greeting. Again, its ultimate aim is to create a safe atmosphere for students where they feel comfortable and accepted by their peers.
And we also have that program at the middle school. It's responsive classroom ramped up. It's called developmental design, and it's like an advisory block. We meet once a week with the same, in small groups with the same goal as the responsive classroom, getting a small knit group of kids talking about social skills or news in the classroom, or if something's bothering them, that they have a safe adult to go and talk to, and that happens throughout the year.
Laura?
Are we seeing a lot of the social media cyber bullying? That's mostly for you, Mr. Santry.
We are seeing lots of social media action that includes cyberbullying. We are in a world where, as our students get older, they become a little bit more sophisticated in their language and the way that they're communicating, and they're always one step ahead of people that aren't digital natives, right? We're digital immigrants. We don't have the skills sometimes that they have. Like I said, we have the district attorney in, but mean moments or mean behavior or bullying, it tends to happen on social medias. Unfortunately, that's a reality.
Well, I'll make my comment. As most of you, all of you probably know, my kids are older, and the youngest one graduated in 2008, and there was definitely patterned bullying going on with him. Had there been a law, we would have been in better shape. I'm going to tell you, I am so impressed with the growth in this area. I'm sorry that it has to be done, but I'm so impressed with the handle all of you have on this. I think that parents need to realize that you're listening, and you definitely are. And I think when parents post on Facebook or something, nobody's paying attention, that's the feeling I had when I walked into the principal's office at 6:30 in the morning and waited for him to come in. You have that mama bear comes out, and it's really hard to contain, and you don't, and you can't, and you shouldn't. But I think that's what shows up on Facebook, and after going through this process with any of you, I would think that in most cases, when the parents are open to listening, they would feel like they were heard, and not have to storm the principal's office at 6:30 in the morning. So I want to say I'm very impressed with what you're doing. And if a parent doesn't feel they're being heard, what do they do? I guess is my question. If they come back at you and say, you did nothing, I can't, nothing's happening here, and clearly you are saying there is bullying that goes on in Lunenburg, because people keep saying, they say there's no bullying. No, you're saying it goes on. You're saying that mean moments go on and rude behaviors go on. What happens when the parent comes back at you and said, you did nothing? Or does that never happen?
It does. That's a great question. So if they're coming back at me, I have done something, but they might not agree with what that is. Do you know what I mean? So it's not that I didn't do anything. They may feel the consequence I provided or the discipline that I provided didn't equal the problem that their child had. So sometimes they feel unheard and say nothing happens. So I would always say we make ourselves available to parents for meetings throughout the day. If you're feeling unheard, please email, call the secretaries. We have never denied someone a meeting when they want to come in and talk to us. I try to pride myself on returning emails every morning to a parent who has any questions. My Friday emails aren't newsletters. They're emails that parents can respond to and do, in which I return that response. So that's like a weekly way of me reaching out. So I pride ourselves on our way to communicate with parents, and that would be disappointing if they feel that they're not heard.
One other thing, now you say you provide support for the aggressor and support for the victim. Do parents always take you up on the support, or do they sometimes refuse what you're offering?
That's a great question. Sometimes they do refuse what we're offering because they, throughout their own parenting beliefs, sometimes when a child's being mistreated, they want that to have nothing to do with that other child. And sometimes we don't feel that's the most appropriate avenue is to keep two children apart for 12 years or 6 years or 7 years. They're eventually going to have to interact with each other. So sometimes we offer mentoring pieces. Sometimes it's peer mentors. Sometimes we have an adult come in and try to kind of navigate that. We do offer that at times. And sometimes parents are resistant to having their child interact with the person that had a rude moment or a mean moment with them or a bullying moment. But that is a powerful way in order to stop these interactions from happening, is when students can get in the same room with an adult and try to work things out and see how a perspective of one person or the perspective of another person. It's an effective tool that we've used, but we have had parents that would more want the consequence than the education or the proactive approach for it to stop happening again. And that's their prerogative. I mean, we can offer different services, but sometimes they are refused, I would say. Refused might be a hard time, but they don't want that happening with their child. We've also offered for parents to contact parents too, because sometimes that's the best way is for adults to discuss things. And sometimes parents are uncomfortable with having that discussion with the other parent of the other child because sometimes they're heightened and it's not the best time to do that. So those are some of the things that we offer that have kind of been, at times, not in whole, say, no thank you.
I think we're all questioned out.
Well, I'll offer just a couple of other points of information. One is that the district safety team has been exploring apps that could be used for reporting a variety of things. But bullying is one of those types of things that they would be able to use an app to anonymously provide a report. I'm not going to get into all the details of the particular app right now, but after looking at more than a dozen rather closely, we have settled on one. We've selected Safer Watch. We have some training going on for the administrators this summer. We are planning to have the training for faculty very early in the school year. And then we will also roll it out to students and give them some training on how to use the app. And informationally, we'll be presenting that information as well to parents. So again, it's potentially a convenience that maybe provides some level of safety for people to speak up. That's our hope anyway. So we will have more on that as we get into the early fall, and we'll give you an overview of that app and the trainings that have been provided. And again, this was the district safety team, and on the team are members of our Lunenburg Fire Department and our Lunenburg Police Department. And our dispatch is also on board with the rollout of this particular app. So we'll look forward to sharing more information about that in the fall. I would also say that we are on a routine of every 2 years taking a look at the bullying plan. And I think one of the things in the interest of improved communication, the bullying plan is very lengthy, it's very redundant, it has all kinds of things in it that are not required to be in it. So it's going to be our goal to really streamline that written plan so that it's more accessible, and it still meets all of the requirements that the law put forth there. So, you know, we'll be working on that over the summer as well. Any last thoughts? I just want to thank the entire team for being here tonight. It's a difficult thing when you're that committed to making sure that your building is a safe place for all of your students, to have the chatter out there in the community that implies that they don't care. I hope that everyone who watches this meeting, as well as the members of this committee, can tell how much they care. This is important. It's important for us to get it right. And they do invest a lot of time in making sure that they have all the information they need to get it right. So again, thank you for being here tonight, but thank you for what you do on this front every single day. It's important. So thank you.
And we thank you very much. Now, Melissa's PowerPoint, will that be on the website?
We will put it on the website.
Great. Our next topic is the Keystone Collaborative Property Acquisition.
So you have a letter to the executive board members. It's required that this letter be presented to all of the member districts' school committees. It's more of a point of information than anything else. There's no action required. And you know that I've, spoken several times during Keystone updates quarterly that they had been pursuing properties that they could purchase to have a permanent home for some of the programs that they offer versus staying as a leased guest in available space in member districts or in other locations. This brings an opportunity for a true home base for the program. So again, no action needed. It's really just an FYI.
Thank you. I think it's a great idea. I think it's great for the program. I did have a question in regards to finances. What is the financial impact for the Lunenburg Public Schools and the town of Lunenburg?
There is no impact. The Keystone Collaborative has their own budget and their own financial structures similar to what you would find in place here in town for putting monies aside for purchases just like this. So there's no financial impact for us.
Thank you.
This property, I looked on Google Maps to find this property. I feel badly that it's being sold because it was a wonderful restaurant. But however, and venue, but what a wonderful place for a bunch of kids because people are looking at me, but it's Apple Hill Farm, and that whole area, to have the kids in that kind of environment, what a great place for this collaborative. If they had to sell that property, I'm so glad it's going there.
Yeah, and initially they really weren't interested in pursuing all of the buildings, but in order for a deal to be made, it had to go. But one of the facilities that they really weren't particularly interested in, they are going to have as a function space, and one of the nice things is that they'll be able to host dances for the students at the collaborative at that location. So it really did work out beautifully. And the executive director really did work very diligently exploring all kinds of options for properties, and all of us were quite happy with this particular potential option as we heard about it for the first time a little bit ago. So again, just as a point of information for the board.
Thank you. So now we'll go on to, unless anybody else had any,
No, it's a gorgeous property.
We'll go on to the school improvement plan progress reports.
So you have copies of each of the schools' school improvement plans, the plans that were presented and approved earlier this year, back in the fall. And they've just provided some notes with some update, just, to give you an initial look at the progress that's been made with the goals at each of the schools. As you know, a goal in each of the buildings, minus the high school, was focused around that 80% goal. And we are still digesting data from the spring iReady assessments. You'll hear more about the data next meeting because the curriculum team will be presenting an overview of the final benchmark results and commenting on, growth numbers and such. So not to make this a lengthy conversation, but if any of the principals wanted to speak to very briefly, very quickly, any of the progress that you're particularly happy to see early indications of on your goals, I'd offer you that opportunity.
I don't want to pass up an opportunity to, highlight our progress. So, as you know, the district's goal is to hit 80% at grade level within 2 years, and so our obligation was to get halfway to there this year. So, if you take a look at the Turkey Hill, the goal 1. Third grade, they started at 56%, they ended at 84%. So the email that I sent them was, you surpassed the 2-year goal, what's your next plan, right? So we were just thrilled with those results. Again, so much credit to the HMH curriculum, the literacy and math coaches, and the MTSS program, our intervention program, and our curriculum director. Like what you said earlier, so many supports in place. The other 2 grades, grade 4 and grade 5, they both exactly met the target for reading. And then if you just jump down to goal 2, 3rd grade went from 18% at or above grade level, or early on to above grade level, 18% to 65%. So surpassed the goal by 16 points. 4th grade surpassed the goal by 11 points, and 5th grade surpassed the goal by 20 points. So boom, as I like to say, on track. Just very, very excited about the iReady results that they just took after a long month of MCAS, and yet the kids stepped up and took these assessments to the best of their ability. That was brief.
That's awesome.
You sure?
Good evening. So, as Dr. Burnham explained, my goals both in the middle and the high school for my goal number 1 on both plans, I am awaiting data. One from our goal at the high school includes our MCAS testing. We just completed MCAS testing at the high school today for our bio tests. So that is a long stretch of testing. Our iReady testing at the middle school, our spring benchmark assessments had to be postponed. We were juggling. 8th grade is such a heavy assessment year with our iReady data, fitting in a DC trip, doing math, ELA, and science, technology, and engineering. So we had to push our iReady math testing off until this week. So I'm looking forward. Dr. Burnham puts together a data team over the summer, so we'll take a look at all of that data, and I'll have a more comprehensive picture for you on both the middle and the high school for goal number 1. For goal number 2, which is a social emotional goal for both buildings, just some real broad things that I'm proud of, and then, like I said, we'll go over the data teams with our climate and culture surveys that we completed in both buildings. But we also completed depression and anxiety rating screenings at the high school, which is important. And in both the middle and the high school, we did relationship mapping with our guidance team and our social workers. Relationship mapping is that we determine through a survey with students whether they have a relationship with an adult in the building. Ties right back to our bullying piece, or we want every student in each building to make sure that they have an adult that they can trust. I remember at the high school that was one of our priorities that we were trying to increase. We will look at that data with the climate survey that we did not only in 2022 but 2023, so we'll be able to compare those results. I believe in the 14 domains that are rated in that culture survey that neither the middle or the high school scored under an average score, so 2.5 to 3.5 being in the average range. I believe we scored nothing less than a 3.0, and these are climate scores taken by the students, parents, and teachers. So I'll be able to present on that a little bit more after we go over those. Exciting stuff, I believe. And Trails to Wellness is being taught at our middle school, and we were able to, post-pandemic, I love saying that, is that we have our developmental design small groups back in place. Like I had said, just creating those small knit groups of kids in our building. We did implement our Trails to Wellness program at the high school. We did 4 lessons with our dedicated guidance staff with groups of students in the auditorium, and that went very well. And goal 3 on both of my plans is around a master schedule. It's been one of our goals as a middle and a high school now for 3 or 4 years. I assembled a master schedule committee. We met 3 times. We are making minor tweaks to the master schedule to make sure that we are being efficient in our use of instructional time, as well as making sure that students have opportunities from both the middle school and the high school. So I'm excited to continue with that work. We've actually been looking at different 6 through 12 buildings and what their schedules are. Do they run separate middle high? Do they run a joint schedule? I think we've looked at 9 or 10 6 through 12s, and I believe we have it down to about 2 that have a joint middle high school schedule. So with our goal that if we are we're going to determine whether we can become more efficient with those schedules, and if we are adopting something in the 24-25 school year in order to implement that. So that work with the Master Schedule Committee will continue next year. So those are just some of the highlights. I'm looking forward to the data where I can point to, hopefully, that our schools are continuing to succeed and be successful as they have in the past. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, again. So the first goal that I have on my school improvement plan, it talks to the 80% of students who will be on or above grade level in reading. So if you look at my data, There are 3 columns, green, yellow, and red, which are the same columns that we use when we look at the iReady data to determine student placement. Also, just kind of triggers for us where students are. Made it a little bit easier for me to read. Hopefully, it makes it easier for you to read. Again, HMH curriculum, common planning time, coaches, the MTSS supports we've been able to have in place, all really played a part in the success of what we gained this year. Not what I expected with 2 new curriculums, but I'll take it. My email to my staff, I said, wow, big capital letters with a big exclamation. I know we're not supposed to use capitals in emails, but I did. I really congratulated them. There was a lot of work going into picking up those 2 new curriculums really quickly. And I think we're just beginning to see the effects they're going to have on the students moving forward. Not to mention all the time and effort that the staff put into to really working with that curriculum and collaborate with the other support systems we had. And my apologies, there is a typo on the math section. It should be 18, not 8. Somebody came into my office at that point in time, and I got distracted. So my first school improvement goal, we've completed a lot of those action steps. So I'll be looking at that over the summer. I've talked to the School Advisory Council. I said I was going to change the goal to include math. Right now, it only focuses on reading, but I really feel like we can give equal time to both. I just have to change the language a little bit, and that's what we're going to do with that. Everything in blue on mine is just evidence that's recently happened. So if you click on those, there's a links to documents or things that happen if you're looking at that. The second goal is culture. I'm definitely going to be adding staff as more of as part of that focus for building culture. It's in there now, but it's not in there. It needs to be fleshed out a little bit more. Or I might add it to just add it to the goal language itself. The communication goal, a lot of those things have been completed. So next year, what I'm looking at is changing my communication goal to a family engagement goal and moving the communication piece underneath as a strategic focus, or a strategic priority. But like I said, all the changes, any of the updates, a lot of that work's been completed. I get to create a whole nother list of strategic priorities this summer after the data summits and after I look at some of the other data that we've collected. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Looks terrific.
Thank you.
Congratulations to all of you.
Yeah, this was,
Thank you.
those students at grade level numbers were fantastic. So, thank you, both of you. And all.
Very encouraging.
Very encouraging. Absolutely.
Still work to do.
I'm really looking forward to seeing MCAS data. But, these are early indicators, and they're very, very encouraging.
Good trends.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
So now we are at reports. Does anyone have any reports? Yes.
The PTO met on Monday. Dr. Burnham came for the first part. They are planning the Hollis Hills thing. They have all of the stuff ready to go for the auctions. They really do have, I'm not saying this because the person goes there. They have really good stuff. They have one of those smokeless grill or smokeless fire pits. They had AirPods. I mean, it's good stuff.
Awesome.
And then
That's for a raffle?
yeah. And then they're starting planning for next year for events. And I think the only thing that's guaranteed is they're going to do another movie. So the movie was such a huge moneymaker, so.
Sure.
Yep.
Great. Anything else? I just have, the master planning committee is meeting next Thursday night, so I will know more about that the next time.
FinCom's meeting tomorrow, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
We will be attending.
Yeah.
You will be
Athletic advisory will be Monday evening.
The advisory that's not the word. I'll come up with the right word in a minute. But the committee that chooses the new finance committee members is meeting on the 27th. There are 2 people.
All right.
Wow.
So one is a redo, one is re-upping. We thank him very much. And the other is a new individual. So that's terrific. And we will meet, and I'll tell you about that afterwards.
Finance Committee Appointments Committee.
Thank you. Those are the words I was looking for. So.
Confused with the dodgeball, the American Dodgeball
Association.
True enough. Okay, so now we have public comment. If there's anyone that would like to make a public comment, they're welcome to do so. We have someone in by phone, and if they wish to comment, they can't raise their hand, so they may just jump in if they wish. Hearing nothing, I think that we have no public comments then. Any other comments from the group? All right. Topics for future, future discussion. We have a laundry list for next time. We have the assessment information. Next time we have
a draft of the school committee meeting calendar for next year. We have a presentation from the team that participated in the family school partnership work with the Department of Ed. There might be a few other small business type things to do, but those will be the big
Those are the
items.
primary ones for the next time. Okay?
Just to put a bug in people's ears around a potential topic, not for the next meeting or even the meeting after that, but something that I've been thinking about, and it's really relevant to Mr. Plant's comments. I think we do need to have a conversation about instructional equity and kind of take a hard look at exactly the graphic that he showed and thoughts around are really what is equity, particularly when it comes to students who are at an advanced level, who, are the kids who were at or above grade level in September and those kinds of things. I had a middle school student approach me at a fundraiser last week on this topic. Her dad pointed out that I was on the school committee, and she wanted to discuss it with me. And we're going to have a discussion about this in the near future. But I think that this is a topic that keeps coming up. Mm-hmm. I'm not even sure where I stand on it. I've certainly gotten some opinions from you, Carol, and from the superintendent and the curriculum team, but I think that it's an issue that keeps coming around, and I think it's something that deserves school committee discussion.
We can put it on the list, probably for the fall at this point.
It's not anything we're going to, turn the boat inside of the
Right.
next school year, but I think
Right.
it's something that we need to talk about.
I would love to discuss that.
Yeah.
Okay, then we need to have someone make a motion to go into executive session to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session and adjourn following that.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All righty.